Have you ever heard of a bullpen catcher in baseball? And even if you have you ever wondered how one becomes a bullpen catcher in baseball? So let me tell you this. Today, we're talking to a bullpen catcher for the Kansas City Royals. And this was a connection through my friend Aaron Brunson. Shout out to Aaron. Aaron was like, man, I got someone for you. He told me about Jacob Hobson, and he told me all about him. He said, hey, I don't know a lot about sports, but Jacob would be a great guest for your show. And oh my gosh, he was. And I cannot wait for you guys to hear this interview. Listen, his story to becoming a bullpen catcher is so unique. And that's what I hope you guys tune into. He had a dream of just being able to continue playing baseball and having baseball as part of his life moving forward, even if he didn't compete at the next level after high school or anything of that nature. So the fact that he's now working as a bullpen catcher for the Kansas City Royals in Arizona at their facility there is unbelievable. It's truly a dream come true. It's incredible to see someone. It's super inspiring to see somebody who's now doing that. And I want you guys to listen to the interview so that you can learn how that came to be. We'll be talking about what he does as a catcher, some of the catching tips and tricks and the intricacies of the position, and how he coaches other catchers. We'll be talking about some of his favorite memories, some of the pitchers that he's worked with as they're rehabbing to get back to their playing shape, some of the best places he's been, some of his favorite memories in this position, where he's gone, and whatnot. We'll talk about the differences between professional athletes and those in high school and junior college and Division I baseball, where he's been around. So a lot of cool stuff coming today in this interview. So tap into this one. This is the Game Time Guru. So,
what time is it? Game time!
This is the Game Time Guru podcast, where I interview sports figures from all over the world to help deliver a panoramic view on sports. So whether you're a former athlete, one of the crazies, or simply a casual sports fan, this is the perfect show for you as we peel back the curtains and learn from our guests every single week. I'm your host, Shane Larson, and I'm helping you see sports through a different lens. What's going on, everybody? Welcome out to another episode of the Game Time Guru podcast. Super excited to have you guys with us for another episode. If you guys haven't hit the subscribe button, please do. I appreciate everybody for joining in, and this might be your first time listening to the podcast, and if that is the case, I'm super excited to have you guys here. Been doing this show for 8 years now, a little over 8 years, interviewing sports figures from all across the globe, different stories, different sports, different realms of the sports world, and it's just been an amazing experience being able to meet these people. So if you guys want to listen to more interviews, hit that subscribe button. Currently, am trying to build out the YouTube channel. I already have a very well-established audio base on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. But if you're listening to this and maybe you're a YouTube person, you would prefer to watch the videos, go over to YouTube and hit the subscribe button. I'm trying to build that audience out and try to get that to 1,000 followers by the end of this year. I just never really did it up until now. It's been 8 years, and I've only been really using YouTube, optimizing that for the last year or so. So make sure to hit that subscribe button wherever you're at. As you guys heard in the introduction, super exciting opportunity. I got to shout out my friend whom I work with at my full-time job. His name is Aaron. Aaron actually got me connected, and Aaron would be the first to tell you he's not a sports guy, doesn't really follow sports too much, but he was like, man, I've got a really cool opportunity for you. I want to tell you about Jacob Hobson. He tells me who you are. He connected me with you. Jacob Hobson is a bullpen catcher for the Kansas City Royals, and we're going to learn a little bit more about that in depth, but I'm super excited. Thanks to Aaron. But Jacob, thanks for joining the show, man.
No, I appreciate it, Shane. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Heck yeah, brother. Heck yeah. So Jacob, I mean, we mentioned you're a big league bullpen catcher, right? And before we even get into that, because that's a niche that I want to discuss, because it's interesting. It's an interesting part of the business that some people might not even really know much about. But I want to rewind the clock a little bit. Let's talk about Jacob Hobson prior to this, and talk about you as the baseball player growing up. I guess my question would be, growing up, when did you get into the sport of baseball? Was that your main focus growing up, or were you like a multi-sport athlete?
So, pretty much, I mean, outside of, soccer for a few years, maybe peewee basketball or something like that, baseball has pretty much been my entire life. If I were to think, if I could go back, I probably wish I would have played other sports, just from a athletic standpoint, to learn different skills and agility and all that stuff. But baseball has I started playing when I was about 4 and played every year since then. Played through high school, and I finally got to a point where I realized I, wasn't going to play at the next level. And I was content with that. Just from the perspective, I didn't really care what level um, I would play at. All I cared about was that I would just be playing baseball for the rest of my life in a rec league or wherever it was. I just wanted to have baseball with me throughout my life. And once I got and started to steal the thunder too, on I assume you wanted me to talk about just going forward with everything.
Yeah, yeah. If we could.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. So in high school, I I didn't really catch that much. I was an infielder, outfielder. I caught a little bit. Um, but I was 150 pounds, 5'10". Didn't really work out. Didn't really know anything about the recruiting aspect. It's such a different game today with travel ball and just you have to start the recruiting process in eighth grade. Like it's so crazy. This was back in 2016, 2017. And me and my parents, we knew nothing about getting recruited to play in college. We just knew that you had to go to some showcases and you had to pay to go to these showcases. But my biggest issue was I was going to these showcases when I had nothing to showcase, and that's really the big problem today with a lot of this stuff. And so I hit that point my senior year where I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to be able to play at the next level. I'm going to attend Cal State Fullerton to get my degree in communications broadcast journalism because I wanted to be a baseball announcer. So I wanted, I grew up a huge Dodger fan. I wanted to be just like Vince Scully. Um, so I was like, you know what? Let me go to Cal State Fullerton, and I'm gonna play baseball on the side, just like rec ball. So I saw there was a club team at Fullerton, and I was like, you know what? Let me just join that. So I'm on the team for a week there, and um, leading up to this was 2017. The year prior, the NCAA team for Cal State Fullerton had just finished going to the College World Series in Omaha. So they were a top 25 program. Um, and I'm at a tryout for the club team, just the rec ball team. And my dad came to the tryout. He always loved watching me, even though it's a club team. And my dad always saw more potential than I did in myself. And so he's at the tryout and he starts emailing the NCAA recruiter for Fullerton. And it sounds funny saying now because like I said, we had no idea how a recruiting process goes, or this is a top 25 program in the country.
Right.
My dad was asking for an open tryout to see if there's like, do you guys have open tryouts? Which I couldn't, I even if there was an open tryout, would have zero chance making a D1 top 25 program. And the recruiter, his name's Chad Baum. He responds, he says, unfortunately, we don't give open tryouts, but we do need a bullpen catcher. We were supposed to have a bullpen catcher come here, but plans changed and we're in search of one right now. Does your son catch? And of course, my dad said, "Oh, he's been catching his whole life." And
Yeah.
really, I caught like 1 year in high school. I look back at the video today, and it's so bad. It's hard to watch. And so my dad tells me about that after the tryout, and I've been on the team for a week now, and he's like, "Hey, he's like, I really think you need to take advantage of this opportunity." And so I show up to practice one day, and they have me catch off the pitching machine just to start. Wasn't the best, but they're like, you know what? Let's see if you can do it. And from that point on, that's really where everything started, and I'm super grateful for just being in the right place at the right time.
No, Jacob, that's actually really cool because you never know what can happen, right? Like, shout out to your dad for like opening the door there. You're almost happy you didn't know what was going on when it happened. You're like, Dad, why would you say that? Like, I never caught before my life, like one of those things. But what a cool opportunity to get into that realm. It kind of reminds me of a story, and I can't think of the guy's name right off the top of my head, but I read his book because he did this in football. It was a long snapper, and he never had done long snapping before ever, but that's how he ended up in the NFL. Like he like lied about it on the tape, and he like hodgepodged some tape together. He was a tight end, I think he was, and then he told him that he could long snap, and then he ended up with an open tryout in the NFL, ended up getting onto a roster and played in the NFL as a long snapper.
Man, that's awesome.
He taught himself how to be a long snapper. So anyway, my whole point is like there's certain ways you can get, if you can get yourself in the door. So here's a question. That's actually really cool. I think that's cool because you mentioned something, Jacob, earlier. Like you had determined that in your life, like I just want to have baseball as part of my life moving forward, whether that's rec league or whatever. That's similar to me in basketball. I enjoy, like, I'm not as good as I once was. I'm 36 years old now. I even had a game last night. At the time of this recording, it was last night. Awful. I played absolutely terrible. I mean, we're in the top division of our rec league, and I feel like, man, I'm like not at this level anymore. It's just crazy, but I still love it though. You know, I still love the game, and I love to coach, and I love to be around it. So I love that you said that. But one thing I want to ask is, and like you mentioned, you knew you weren't going to be at the next level, but I love the fact that there's ways to still be part of the game, even if you're not playing at the next level. I think that's so cool, and this should show that. But I need to ask now, when you get in there, you're at Cal State. Also, shout out to you for like the degree, broadcast journalism. I went to school. I'm a comm major, Boise State grad, but like I was going to be,
we go.
I was going to be a play-by-play announcer, do the whole thing. This is why I started my podcast. It's because I enjoyed that. So that's like part of my whole entire thing. But I shout out to you for comm stuff too. I had a couple notes that I took while you were talking, and I'm just like, okay, I got to touch base on this. But going in there, catching, it's a whole different skill set, right? Every position in baseball, it's a different skill set. Like, some people, I think, watch, those who don't play baseball but just follow the sport, like myself, they'll watch and they just find it to be so natural and normal when the catchers are just sitting, because it's just every single play, the pitcher and the catcher, every single. But I think it's actually really intimidating and scary sometimes too. So I want to talk to you about that. Like, what was your experience like as you started being a bullpen catcher at the Division I level?
Yeah, so humbling to say the least to start. So coming into that freshman year, I think I went to Chino Hills High School. I was there with the Ball brothers.
Were you?
Yeah, so I grew up with them. That's usually how people know Chino Hills. Leangelo was my class. Lonzo was a couple years older, and then LaMelo was 2 years younger. But you know, Chino Hills baseball wasn't the greatest. I think the fastest I had caught up to that point was like 82, 83 miles an hour. And so going to Fullerton, now it was. Are you still there? I think you're frozen.
Yeah, I'm right
here.
Okay,
cool, gotcha. Okay, yeah, your frame's just frozen.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, all good. I just want to make sure. Okay, so going into that freshman year, there were 7 draft pitchers in the bullpen. 7 pitchers that year got drafted. So they were, you know, at the highest level. They were juniors. They were at their peak velocity, and so they were 92 to 95. And the first fall, it was very, you know, I was clanking balls. There was no trust. I was unconfident, and it was pretty bad. But then something finally clicked where I think it was my sophomore year, where I had made an adjustment. I was seeing the ball better, and that's when guys started telling me, they're like, "Hey, man, like we love throwing to you. Like we really like." We want to throw to you over our actual catchers on the team. Just we love how you present the ball. We love your target. We love your setup. And that's really when I started taking this seriously. I'm like, man, like maybe like this isn't just for fun anymore. Maybe I have something that I could use as value. And so after my sophomore year, so technically, I was a student manager as well at Fullerton. I'm student manager / bullpen catcher. Now, there's other student managers on the team that aren't bullpen catchers. So they'll throw BP, they'll do laundry, they'll make runs to get food and stuff like that. Where was I going with that? Oh, so they wanted to, obviously, they want to get into coaching going forward. So once the summer hit, after graduation or after the end of the school year, everyone would go off to summer ball to play summer ball.
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't play, but so they would go off to the student managers. They would go coach summer ball, like as like a coaching apprentice, because that's what they want to do. And I wasn't doing anything. And so I asked our coach, I'm like, hey, I want to go to summer ball. I want to be a bullpen catcher in summer ball. And he's like, well, where do you want to go? And I said, send me to the Cape. And the Cape Cod League, if not everyone's familiar with it outside of the baseball world, Cape Cod Baseball League is the most prestigious summer league in the country. So I think it was something where 60% of the players that have played in the Cape Cod League have made the big leagues. So
Wow.
it's in Massachusetts, and every great player goes there right before the draft. And so they're like, okay, if you think you can handle it, I'm like, no, like send me up there. So they sent me out to Cape Cod for 2 months. And every pitcher there was throwing 95, 96 plus.
Wow.
And coming back to my junior year, the next season, I was very confident now, kind of just like the stepping stones of building confidence. And especially with catching, confidence is the biggest factor in determining success and not getting hurt. Uh, if you're not confident, you're not going to catch the ball correctly and everything with that. So once I kind of established that, I got through my senior year and I was like, you know what? I need to start trying to get a bullpen catching job. And then that's, that kind of leads up to where we are now.
Did you know growing up that was actually like a job? Did you know that growing up?
I always felt I've had people that will be like, okay, I'm going to take a break from baseball. I'm going to, go work this job. And then they try and get back into baseball. And I feel like once you leave, it's hard to get back in just in terms of the circle. And so I felt something where I needed more time to get a bullpen catching job. It wasn't going to be immediate, but I had to work in a baseball atmosphere to just, stall a little longer. So my buddy, my buddy's dad, opened up this baseball facility in Orange County. And so I started working there. I worked the front desk. And then, long story short, I started giving catching lessons there.
Oh, cool.
Just for extra money and stuff. And then that's really where I found a love for coaching. Then I got offered a job, a catching coach job at Cypress College, JUCO. I started coaching there for just that fall of 22. And I remember I was watching the catchers one day and they were catching bullpens. And I just felt such a jealousy and I missed catching bullpens so much. And that's when I was like, you know what, I need to start emailing organizations and really just try and get my foot in the door to get a bullpen catching job. So I start emailing every organization I could find an email for. And then the Royals were the first ones to get back to me. They said they needed a bullpen catcher at their Arizona complex. They said this isn't a normal thing to have a bullpen catcher at a complex. Not every organization has this. It's very rare. But they said they'd create a role for me because they really need it. Usually, organizations they'll just use catchers that aren't playing that much or low priority guys that are they know they're not going to make it to the big leagues. They'll have them catch all of the bullpens, all of the rehab guys, and it sucks. It's terrible. When really you can get someone like me who would just love to be there and has a passion for it. That just brings morale and good vibes to the whole complex. Pitchers don't want to be thrown to a guy who doesn't want to be there. So really, I got the job in January of 2023, and ever since, it's nice when you love to go to work. It's my favorite. It's such a nice place to be, and all my friends are pitchers, and I love pitchers, and I get to do a lot of cool stuff. So very, very thankful and grateful for where I am right now.
Man, there's so many cool parts to this story, Jacob. That's what I think is awesome about sharing it. Like, yeah, you're there, you're a bullpen catcher, and some would just like say, "Oh, cool," but like the way that you got there, in my opinion, is pretty dope. That's why the story is so sick. Going back and looking at like the one thing you mentioned was sometimes when you get out of baseball, it's hard to get back into the ecosystem, so to speak. And so you made it a legitimate effort to like still be connected in the sport and doing the thing. So you were at the facility and then you started coaching. I want to pick your brain on the coaching side of things and teaching people how to be a catcher. So this goes back to my previous question about like catching. It's an intimidating thing to me. Like you got 97, 95, 94, like, I mean, 90 plus miles an hour sometimes coming at your face, and there's a lot to it. And one of the things you mentioned earlier as you were describing certain things like framing and all this stuff, would you mind like kind of sharing with us some of the intricacies of being a catcher? Because obviously there's catchers coaches, there's pitching coaches, there's catching coaches. Some people, honestly, Jacob, I think just believe that the catcher's down there, they squat down, they make a number, and the ball's thrown to them. But there's so much more to it. Do you mind like sharing a little bit of the intricacies of the position?
Yeah, absolutely. So catching 20 years ago, or even 10 to 15 years ago, it is a complete 180 of what it is today. The position has changed so much in such little time, obviously for the better. But it's not what it used to be. So, for example, I'll throw some statistics at you. I'm pretty sure these are the right ones. 82% of out of the three things a catcher can do: receive, block a ball, and throw a runner out. The highest run prevention is in receiving, and that's not an opinion; it's a stat.
Right.
Because the highest run prevention is in that category because you prevent more walks, which means you prevent more runs. So I'm pretty sure 82% of value goes to receiving, something like 10% goes to blocking, and then 8% goes to throwing guys out, something like that. So the highest value is focused on receiving. So that's kind of the direction of everything now. So you're not usually how catching would be you're on 2 feet, you're not on one knee. One knee stance is what everyone does now. Before you'd be in that traditional squat, and you'd really be focused on blocking the ball and throwing guys out in a traditional 2-knee stance. But now you're in a 1-knee stance. And the reason you're on a 1-knee stance is because it's easier to receive and you have more leverage from the ground because you're the ability to get low while being in 1 knee. With that, there comes the stealing strikes part, or the saving strikes. You have a better chance of, because you're the ability to get lower, your eyes are now low with your hand, with your glove, right? And so now you're able to get under those pitches a lot better, and it saves the legs of a catcher throughout the season. So pretty much, I guess on the coaching side of just the confidence with everything, it all comes down to just building trust. If you have zero trust, you're not going to catch a ball. And so I see a lot of these coaches on Instagram and stuff like that. Like with me, for example, I really pride myself in doing one-on-one instruction. I'm very hesitant on group instruction when it comes to a group of catchers,
Right.
because I really think you need to hone in on what the main issues are for someone. When I was growing up, we would do blocking and stuff, and my coaches would just feed a pitching machine, and they would just say, do whatever you can to block it. They wouldn't show you any mechanics. We wouldn't work on it. There was no trust, to where it really made me afraid of the ball for a long time. I'm all for, you got to toughen up, you got to do that stuff. But if you have zero trust, then, we're just being counterproductive at this point. So, I think the biggest thing is building the trust, understanding your body, because everyone's different. You can't cookie cut this stuff. Understanding your body, understanding how your body works, understanding your flexibility, athleticism. I think feel is the biggest thing of just not even, okay, you have to do this a certain way, but does that feel good when you do that? You know, because at the end of the day, catching can be a very uncomfortable position, and you have to be back there 9 innings. So you have to be comfortable back there in your setup, in the way you do everything, because that's going to translate to if you're confident or not. And the trust. If you're not comfortable, you're not going to be confident, and it's just going to be a tornado back there. So I know that was a long answer, but
No, it's all that's the perfect type of an answer though, because there is a lot that goes on. I think honestly, like people just think the catchers down there. I know there's been people who've talked to me about how I bet their legs are tired when they used to squat down the whole time. Their knees must hurt. There's so much that goes into it, man. And
yeah.
like you're talking about how your old coaches would like, just no real explanation as to how to do it. Just block it. Reminds me of Happy Gilmore. They're just seeing Happy Gilmore
Yep.
in the batter's box, just taking
Yeah.
shots to the body with the balls. Just makes
364 days.
Still hockey tryouts. Yeah, I love it. So man, here's one thing I've always wondered, and I want to get your thoughts on. I know it's just you're doing a bullpen catching, so there's no batter, but like the whole concept of like a tip ball. Can you explain that to me a little bit? Like I know coaching and stuff, like when somebody's swinging and that's one of my biggest fears, Jacob, is like just thinking about like a catcher behind there and the bat swings and tips the ball so fast. There's no way to react. Like, would you guys coach on that? Like how to handle that situation? Cause that scares how do you like not have a little bit of fear going on there?
Well, so first, being at the complex too, I'm not just in the bullpen. I will catch a lot of like pitchers will throw live batting practice with the hitter. So I'll catch those as well. And believe me, I get my fair share of foul tips to the body back there.
How do you do it, man? Like I just want to know that. Oh
yeah.
God.
So there's sometimes I'll see like sometimes you'll see a foul tip that hits off the glove and the catcher doesn't catch it and it's a foul ball. And if you held on to it, it'd be strike three. And people will say, oh my God, like, how do you not catch that? There's literally, it's impossible to time up and adjust to that. All you're doing is you're expecting him to swing through every pitch and not swing at every pitch. You're putting your glove where it's going to be. Now, for the part you're talking about with the foul tips hitting you in the thigh, hitting you in the cup, there's really nothing you can do. It's inevitable. The scariest is with sinker ballers, right? So guys who throw sinkers, fastballs that sink, you're going to get a lot of foul tips to the body because the hitter sees a four-seam fastball coming straight. He thinks it's a four-seam, but last second it's getting that sink. So now the barrel, right? Here's a ball right here. Your barrel, the ball's going to sink last second. Barrel's going to be right here, and that ball's going straight down back to the catcher. And there's ways to, I'll say with some guys, hey, like sometimes when I'm catching it, if we're going right-handed sinker on a right-handed batter and we're going inside, sometimes I won't I'll adjust my setup where I take my knee and I cover the groin area as I'm catching it because I know if he fouls this one off, it's going to be straight in that area. So there's ways to optimize where that's the benefit of a catcher, right? You know what pitch is coming, right? So you can optimize your setup based off of what's coming in, and you can adjust. So that's pretty much how you deal with it. Is you deal with the pain of just dealing with it.
Oh man, it scares the crap out of me.
Yeah.
Props to you there. You got to have a lot of I don't know, confidence. You're brave to be able to take that on. That's scary to me. I don't know. So, Jacob, I do have a question for you. Now, you were doing this for a Division I program, a high profile Division I program. You also coached at a junior college, and now you're working for a professional organization. And so I'm sure you've seen talent at different levels. You've seen it at the Division I level. You've seen it at the junior college level. Now you're seeing it at the professional level. And even with the pitchers that are coming out of there and trying to recover where you're at, like helping them with rehab and just getting back in the system, there's still professional athletes. And so what I would like to ask you on that one is being around professional athletes is something that I think is so phenomenal just because of like what you can learn from just being around them and how they conduct themselves. What would you say is one of the biggest differences between a professional pitcher, like a professional athlete that you're around, compared to that of maybe even a high profile college player? Are there differences there in the way in which, that makes them a professional? That's why people say they're a professional for a reason. What would you say are some of the differences that you notice?
Yeah. So I'll say too, I'll make the question a little I'll compare big league pitcher to a college pitcher because there's a lot of pro guys that come out of high school, and there's a big difference from high school pro guys from Division I college guys that are still there. Just a big level of maturity. But the biggest thing from just a big leaguer big leaguer from a top college guy is just obviously maturity, the way they slow the game down. They don't get sped up in when they have to deal with adversity. And a big thing is just repeatability, right? You see a lot of these pitchers. People are like, "Oh man, is it hard catching major leaguers?" I'm like, catching a big leaguer is the easiest thing in the world. It's easier than catching an eighth grade arm, because it's going to be in the same spot that they call, right? They're going fastball away. It's going to be there. It's elite command. It's elite repeatability. It's the ability to spin the ball to do what they want every time. And it's the most fun thing to do is catch a big leaguer because he makes you look good and you make him look good. It's a two-way street with it. Now, the difference between like let's say a high school draft guy that got drafted and a college pitcher is this high schooler was drafted based off of projectability and skill and tools, right? Now this college pitcher, he might not have, the high we're getting these guys are throwing 97 and 98 in high school now, which is crazy.
That's
wild. It's crazy. You'll have that guy, but then in college, you'll have a guy that's throwing 92, 94, junior or senior with elite command. And he's able to pitch in front of 10,000 people at an SEC school. But this high school arm, he's throwing 97, 98, has no idea where it's going. Or maybe in his first professional outing, there'll be a couple thousand people there. He'll walk a guy and then he'll walk another guy. It's just the ability to separate from at bat to at bat and just get to the next pitch. So in short, it's really the mental side of stuff, the mental mature side.
Wow. No, that's actually really insightful. And just even the college versus the high school prospects and so forth, and those who were drafted, like that right there, I think makes a ton of sense. In baseball, there in any athletics, I guess there's the skill set itself of just playing the game that you're competing in, but then there's also the external factors, the crowd size. I love that you mentioned the crowd size. That's an intricacy of the game that can put a lot of pressure on someone. If you can't get through the mental side of it, then it causes inconsistencies. And so I could see like at a professional level that does it. Like they're so consistent. They're in a flow. They understand that type of stuff. So that doesn't bother them as much. And I love that you said, I just took a note on that. It's easier to catch than like an eighth grade pitcher because it is like consistent. It is where they say it's going to be. So another question I have for you, Jacob, is working with these guys. You said January of 2023 is when you got the job. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So January 2023. So you've been able to work there for a year now, doing this type of work. Have you been able to work with any pitchers that have been able to recover and they've gone through their whole phase and then have been able to start playing again? And if so, is that does that feel rewarding to you and stuff?
Oh yeah, 100%. I think it's so tough being in an environment where, for example, right now we have about 10 pitchers recovering from Tommy John surgery. And the numbers going up every year because guys are throwing harder than they've ever been, and it's sad, but and it's part of the game now. Um, but in an environment where it could be such a negative situation, because these guys are rehabbing for 12 to 18, some guys 18 months, of no competitive baseball. They'll, for the after Tommy John surgery, they won't pick up a ball for 2 months or 6 weeks, whatever it is. And then they start the throwing program at 45 feet, then to 60 feet the next week, then 75 feet. And then once they get to throwing bullpens, they have to throw 18 bullpens until they can start throwing to live hitters. Then they have to throw to live batters with no defense in all fastballs. So it's a whole process of just to get them to be able to throw in an in-game atmosphere again. And so it could turn into a very negative situation if the culture is toxic. Guys getting down on themselves because they're not where they want to be. They don't think their arm is going to be the same as it was when it was healthy. But what's good, at least for I'll speak with our organization and in our rehab, there's the group of guys we have right now, everyone's making jokes, everyone is uplifting. It's such a positive atmosphere. Every time a guy's throwing a bullpen, every guy that's rehabbing comes and watches, because everyone's pulling for him because they know how long they've been dealing with this. There's so much uncertainty and unknown that goes into the whole situation with if they're going to be able to come back healthy or throwing harder or throwing as hard. So when those guys finally get healthy and they get to go out to low A or high A, or they finally leave Arizona, it sucks because they're my friends and I love seeing them every day, but I'm so happy that they can, get the hell out of Arizona and they can finally go play again. So it is really rewarding in a sense of just, I'm with these guys every day and just being able to see them healthy again.
That's really cool. For anyone who's ever been through an injury, they understand it is so mentally taxing. So it's cool to see that people are, it's hard. I had shoulder surgery and I'm telling you right now, it's like 6 months before I could ever actually get back to playing basketball. And it took, there were a lot of mental ups and downs during that time frame. And it seemed like it was never going to get over. So you're probably around a lot of guys that, they're going through the mental battles too. So to see them overcome that stuff is pretty freaking cool. Jacob, one of the question I wanted to ask you is so far in your career, what has been the coolest experience for you?
So I think I've caught a few guys that have been really cool. I caught Zack Greinke last year,
Wow.
and I grew up a huge Dodger fan. So that was probably the coolest guy I've ever caught. Um, I was able to be I was in the Arizona Fall League in 2023. With our team here in Surprise, Arizona, and we won the championship, and so I got a ring. So that was up there too, because I haven't won a lot in my life, and Chino Hills baseball wasn't doing anything, and so that was nice. But probably the coolest thing, or the ongoing cool thing, is just spring training every year. Spring training is so fun because I grew up coming to, I would go to Camelback Ranch growing up to Dodger spring training every year. And now I'm able to be on the other side of it. And, I'm asked to sign autographs sometimes. I have my own jersey. I was able to be in 2 major league games in the bullpen last spring, and I almost got to warm up Aroldis Chapman. He was my teammate for the day. the the dude who's thrown the hardest pitch in the history of baseball. I really think it's just spring training though in general, because it's like the whole state of Arizona is all spring training from February to the end of March. And you just you have kids coming up to you, they're asking for balls and stuff like that, and it's just at the end of the day it's humbling, because I was that kid.
Yeah.
Even in high school, I was asking for balls and stuff, and I would ask for an autograph and stuff like that. And I just try and remind myself every day. It's like, man, like if you're coming to the baseball field every day for the rest of your life, that's not a bad day.
Dude, that's why I'm smiling, because honestly, just like hearing your story in this short time that we've been chatting, you're literally like living out a dream. You know what I mean? You had mentioned it. That's kind of what you wanted to just be around baseball, but I almost think this is better than you could have imagined. What a cool opportunity to be around. Even as we get older, we're still fans of people too. You see them as people when you get to be around them, but you're still a fan. And so that's also pretty cool, and oh man, it's cool. I think it's an inspiring story too. And you mentioned something like you haven't won a ton, like just Chino Hills wasn't winning when you were there. It's all good. Like some people don't experience a lot of winning, so like that was an experience for you to be able to get a ring. That's pretty cool, man. And one question I want to ask, like, where's the coolest? Like, I guess you said you were at you got to go to 2 games, be part of 2 major league games. What's your favorite stadium? Like, what stadiums were you at? Like, which stadium were you at?
So also, well, in the fall league too. The fall league, we would travel around all of the Arizona spring trainings.
Oh yeah.
There's 14 other teams. Salt River and Scottsdale is pretty good. Pretty cool. Diamondbacks and Rockies place. They just have a really cool stadium. It's a richer area down there. But coolest stadium I've been to, when I went to the Cape Cod League, we got to shag, or we got to. I got to shag batting practice for our Cape team at Fenway Park. So I was able to field balls off the Green Monster and stuff like that. So I mean, that's probably the coolest stadium I've ever been to. Yeah, it's such a great experience.
Dude, that's so cool. Like, that's what I'm talking about. It's like sports will take you to different things, like outside of just playing the game. It takes you and it allows you to have these amazing experiences. You can travel at times. Yeah, you mentioned Scottsdale too. Let's not downplay Scottsdale. That's Arizona is beautiful all around. Like,
Yeah.
it's amazing. So, but Scottsdale's something else too. I freaking love that place, man. One day I'll move down to Arizona out of Idaho because I need to get out of the cold. But, no, that's so cool, man. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to chat with you, Jacob. I think it's really cool to see someone like yourself. I do have to make sure I said a year because I said January 23. I'm like, oh, you've been doing it for a year. It's been 2. I forget.
Yeah, this will be my 3rd year. Yeah.
Man, like, yeah. What am I doing? The math did not add
No,
up. So
all good.
While you were talking, I'm like, I said 1 year. I'm an idiot. So, one last question for you. What would you say, being around the sport, and I know you got hopefully many years left in the sport, but as of right now, Jacob, you look at your life, where you're at as a bullpen catcher, the experiences you've had, college, high school, whatever, since you were 4 years old, you mentioned earlier in the interview, like this kind of when you started, what is the biggest life lesson that baseball has taught you?
I think a couple are, the biggest one is stay humble every day, because especially being around all these injuries and these guys rehabbing, you never know when it could be your last day on the field. You never know when you can throw your last ball. And it's just it's be grateful for where you are every day, because it was when I was hanging up the cleats my senior year of high school, I was thinking about, it's like, man, I'm really hanging these up. Is this for good? But if I wouldn't have had my intention be, I just need to stay in around the game, then you never really have to hang them up. Someone's quote is, don't hang up your cleats, have them be taken away from you or something before you hang them up or something like that. But that one is just stay humble and be present where you are every day, be where your feet are. But another one is from the late Augie Garrido from Cal State Fullerton. His quote was, I'm going to butcher the quote, but it was pretty much, to paraphrase it, was, the most important thing about baseball is the relationships you build in it, because those last a lifetime. None of the other stuff matters. So the relationships I've built, the friends I've made, the memories, just the rapport, everything. I mean, that makes everything worthwhile, and that's why I look forward to every day. Is just it keeps you young. Seeing the boys. I'm going to be 26 in April, and I'll see all my friends, at work, all the pitchers, they're 25, 26 years old, and we'll just talk about Fortnite all day. We'll talk about the latest meme and stuff, where we feel like we're back in high school and stuff like that. And I think that keeps you young, and that keeps life fun.
Dude, this whole interview has made me smile, just because I'm like watching someone. It's cool. It's inspiring. I get to watch someone who's living out their dream and enjoying it, and being present. Like you said, you're living in the moment. You're doing the thing, and you're making those relationships and building lifetime friendships. And I think that is so freaking cool. You get to do things that a lot of people don't get to do. And who would have thought, man? Shout out to your dad for asking for an open tryout.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he caught. Yeah, he
Always.
I love it, man. That's super cool. Well, Jacob, I appreciate you joining me and taking the time out of your schedule to be willing to share your story with us. I've loved it, and I hope the people who are listening, take something of it. And I hope the youth that are listening to this also take something from it, and you take notes. So I just want to say thanks, man. Thanks for joining the show and being willing to share your story.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I had a blast. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. For those who are listening, make sure to hit the subscribe button, because we'll be coming to you next week with another interview. Take care. Guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode of my show. Now, if you could go and do me a favor, head over to iTunes, give me 5 stars, and leave me a review, it would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your support.